All right, just in case you missed the warm-up, in number 1, we are evaluating our function at f of -3. So I'm going to show you how I keyed this in on the calculator. Anytime I have an x, I put it in parentheses, and I key the parentheses in on my calculator as well. So however I write it is exactly how I key it in on the calculator. And you should be getting -8. Okay? All right, number 2, the formula d equals 1/16 gives the stopping distance d, so the distance is d, in feet needed for a vehicle traveling at s miles per hour. Find the speed, so we are looking for s, because it says find the speed, and it tells us that the speed is s in miles per hour. Okay, why is this being... Alright, so the first thing we want to do is they're finding the speed of the vehicle needed to stop 14.06 feet. So since d is in feet and they give us something in feet, they give us d. So I'm just going to substitute in 14.06 equals 1/16s squared. And we are solving for s. So to get rid of that 1/16, you multiply both sides by 16. Okay, gone and gone. And that gets you to 224.96. Hopefully it works out so it gets you to something that's very close to a perfect square, because now when we do 16 times 14.06, we get to 224.96, and now you have to square root, okay, and that if you get your rounded answer, it should be 15 miles per hour. Okay? Alright, number 3, you have a formula for the height of a projectile shot with an initial velocity of 40 feet per second and initial height. So here's how you know to use your calculator, because it says use a graphing calculator to estimate the maximum height of that the projectile reaches. Okay, so this means, we are going to find the maximum on our calculator of this function. Okay, so you need to go to your calculator. Oh, I must have exited it out. You're going to go to your calculator, you're going to key the formula into the y equals. Okay, so we go to y equals, and it's -16, and our t's can just be the x's. Okay, and if you hit graph, hopefully you can see this nice function. If you don't get that, you could go to zoom fit, which is zoom 0, and that'll also give you the nice up close function. So again, if it doesn't show it, just go to zoom fit, and that will get the graph on your screen. So zoom and then the fit button. Okay. And then you got to calculate the max. We have done this before. So second calc down to maximum, and that blinking thing needs to be to the left of the max. Looks like it already was. Enter, and then go back over. I always make sure I give myself more than enough room. Enter, enter. All right, so the maximum is, let's do 1.25 comma 35. So what that means is in 1.25 seconds, so make that note that that's seconds, it's going to reach a maximum height of 35 feet. Typically the x-coordinate is going to be your time. Okay? So the maximum height would be 35 feet. Alright, so that was just a breeze through the warm-up. The mental math on the back, you're deciding which type of graph each equation makes. So hopefully you can realize that the ones with the x squareds make the parabolas. Okay. Oops. And if a is greater than 0, the parabola goes upward. If a is less than 0, the parabola goes downward. So here a is 3, and it's a squared, so it's an upward facing parabola. Here a is -3, the leading coefficient, so it's a downward facing parabola. So 3 is greater than 0. So these are the reasons why. Here's one. A is negative, so a is less than 0, so it would be downward. X equals 7 is a nice vertical line. And then these are not parabolas because they don't have a degree of 2. This one has a negative slope, so it goes downward because m is less than 0. M stands for slope. This one has a positive slope. M is greater than 0. And then down here we have, if you eventually get this one to slope-intercept form, the graph becomes this if you convert to slope-intercept form. -1/2 x plus 3. And that means it has a negative slope because -1/2 is less than 0. And I forgot to do this one. If I were to expand this one out, you would end up getting a is less than 0, so you would have a downward facing, okay, parabola. Alright, so your objective today is to learn to calculate the vertex of a parabola in order to graph a quadratic equation. So, on the front you should have your notes, and it's important to see that they're giving you the formula for the x-coordinate of the parabola. Okay, so notice this gets you the x-coordinate. That's why I have v of x. And you're going to do the opposite of b divided by 2a. But then you have to substitute that x value into the equation to find the y value, because it's going to be something that you want to graph. So the first 1 and 2, you just practice calculating the vertex. So I'm going to write v of x, okay, and it's the opposite of b, so that would be the opposite of 10, which is going to be -10, divided by 2 times 1, because that's a. So remember, b is always in front of the x, a is always in front of the x squared. If I were to do that division, my x-coordinate is going to be -5. Okay? And then to get the y-coordinate, you now have to take that x value and substitute it into the y. Okay? So we're going to have -5 squared plus 10 times -5 plus 30. And I believe you get 5. So that's the y value. So the vertex is -5, 5. Okay? And voila. So you would plot that point. Okay? Alright, and the next one, you would have v of x equals the opposite of b. So the opposite of -12 is +12, divided by 2a, so 2 times 2. And that gets you to x is going to be 3. Okay? So then, when you substitute this in, you have to do 2 times 3 squared minus 12 times 3 plus 15. Okay, and that gets you to I believe, -3. So that means y equals -3. And your x-coordinate is 3, your y-coordinate is -3. Now, obviously it won't always be like that. Just worked out that the coordinates are opposites of each other. So I'm going to leave number 3 for you to do on your own. So I'm going to put a big fat Oyo there. So it's your notes. If you choose not to do it and get it checked, you won't be able to use this one on your quest, which also means that if this exact question is on your quest, you might not be able to get it right. So I would still do it and get it checked. Alright, so now we're just going to take that and graph it. So in 4 through 7, you're going to find the vertex. So I think I've kind of given you space to find the vertex. So I'm going to find my vertex over here. Okay. So the opposite of 12 is 12. Or I'm sorry, the opposite of -12 is 12. Divided by 2 times a. Okay, so that gets us to, we have an x-coordinate of 6. Alright, and then if we want to find the y-coordinate, we have to do 6 squared minus 12 times 6 plus 35. Okay? And that got us to -1. So your vertex, you want to plot as 6, -1. 6, -1. Alright, and then what I've asked you to do each time is find different points. I'm always going to give you the points I want you to find. So I want you to find when x equals what did I want you to find? 7. And then when x equals 5. So what you would do is you would substitute 7 into this equation. So 7 squared would be 49 minus, and you should end up getting a y equals 0. And then once you substitute 5 in, you'll also get a y equals 0. So each time I'm going to give you, you're going to have to calculate the vertex, and then you're going to have to calculate 2 other points that I'm going to give you the x values for. So you would be plotting 7, 0 and 5, 0, and then you just graph. Okay, so you probably should be a little more precise than me. I'm going to make sure that point gets done. Okay. Because my pen is not working very well, I'm just going to kind of not do 5, 6, and 7. But remember, it's your notes, so if you want to try them, try them. Keep in mind you have to get the vertex and 2 other points. Okay? Alright, and then on the back, I want to just go through maybe 1 or 2 of these. So on the back, you're still doing the same thing. In part A each time, it's asking for when, which means it's going to want t. So I think in part A, it's asking for when, which means it's t. So that's going to actually be the x-coordinate of your vertex, because each time in these you're going to be calculating your vertex. And then the maximum height is going to be the y-coordinate of the vertex. Okay? Because one of these parabolas, if we were in the real world, we would only be able to be in the positive because we can't have a negative time and we can't have a negative distance. So if you graph the parabola like this, it only has one maximum. So you're going to have to calculate that maximum, which is actually going to be the vertex. So instead of using our calculator here to do the maximum, we can now just use the vertex. So that vertex formula is the opposite of b. So in this case, it's going to be -50 over 2 times -16. And that means we got to let's do 1.6. when we round. So at 1.6 seconds is when it reaches the maximum. And then to get how high that is, you have to now plug that into your equation. So negative 16 times 1.6 squared plus 50 times 1.6 plus 6. You should be getting around 45 feet. You have rounded a little differently than me, but try to shoot for an answer that gets you to around 45 feet. Okay, so because the pen is not working, I'm just going to kind of have you do 9 and 10 on your own. Remember, you're just in the real world, so you just have a real world problem. You're calculating the vertex. Your x-coordinate gives you the time, your y-coordinate gives you the height things are going to reach. So these are just your notes that you can use on your quest, and then you do have a classwork assignment.